Hello, dear friends. Have a walk with us around our favorite city today. It is Nizhny Novgorod. We don't live here, we live nearby on the other side of the river, on the other bank. But we like it very much. Nizhny Novgorod is rather big. Its population is about 1,200,000 people. Well, that's why it's rather difficult to walk around it at once. But we are in the heart of the city today. It is the Kremlin. Just like the Kremlin in Moscow, the Kremlin in Nizhny Novgorod is a medieval fortress, a place where its history has begun. Of course, Kremlin in Nizhny Novgorod is not as rich and beautiful as in Moscow, and the cities are different, they can't be fully compared. But once in history, Nizhny Novgorod, people of Nizhny Novgorod, its population, they helped Moscow to survive, and in general Muscovite state to survive. Do you see the church in front? It all started there. It is the church of John the Baptist. There was a period in Russian history in 1612 when Polish invaders seized Moscow and ruled there, and an ordinary salesman from a market, Kazma Minin, he was asking people of Nizhny Novgorod to help Moscow to save it from invaders. Kazma Minin made his appeal from the porch of this church, and he was heard. He was an ordinary meat merchant, but people heard him, and they started to get ready to save Moscow. Let's get inside the fortress. It is full of people, tourists, because it was closed for a long time for construction, but now it's opened, and despite the dull autumn weather, there are lots of people. A strong city will stand on the Oka River, and enemy forces will not overcome it. That is the quotation from an ancient chronicle, and it is titled, engraved here on this monument. This monument is devoted to the first settlers of Nizhny Novgorod. It has a date of its foundation, 1221, and it looks like an ancient one, but in fact it was built during the Soviet Union times in 1976. So the large-scale restoration of the Kremlin was provided due to the jubilee that Nizhny Novgorod is celebrating this year. It is 800 years old. Happy birthday! We could easily go up these stairs, go up the hill. They are new, we have not seen them before, but we are not going to do that. We are going up Ivanovsky descent. Why? Because we are heading to the new build bell tower. It is very high and we are going to climb it up and to observe the Kremlin from its upper platform. Look, the restoration works are still being held. And that is something new. We have not seen this church here before. This church was restored and exactly at the place where it was at the very beginning of the 20th century. The church of the 18th century was destroyed in the early Soviet Union times. Like most of the churches were destroyed and closed, and their priests were executed. There is a tradition now that in front of every restored church there is a list of these executed priests. Sometimes there is only one name, sometimes there are several. These were very scary times, dark and scary. This temple was built in honor of the monk Saint Simeon Stylite. Who was this saint man? He was born in Turkey in a Christian family, and he made his monastic feat, performed his monastic feat in Syria. Sometimes even I think that it is very difficult to be an Orthodox. It is difficult to be merciful to people, to go to church every Sunday, not to eat meat or dairy products on Wednesdays and Fridays and during the Lent. But Simeon Stolpnik decided to do even more. He built a tower. At first it was 4 meters high, and he climbed there. He put a little cell there, and he spent his days and nights praying, and he ate only water and bread and even not every day. The monks of the monastery thought that Simeon did it out of pride, to be different, to stay different from the others, and they asked him to climb down. Simeon heard them, and he started to climb down because they were calling him, and they called him, "Stop, Simeon, stop, go back." They saw that he has no pride inside of his soul, only humility. As you see, the church isn't opened yet, there are no services, and it's always interesting to peep. There was another church not far from here, not even a church, the cathedral, but it was wiped off the map in 1930s as the Church of Simeon the Stylite. And we are heading there. It was not restored, rebuilt, no, only the tower was restored, but it is a modern bell tower nowadays. It has a lift, and we are going to go to the upper platform, as I have said already, and observe the Kremlin. The whole area we are observing now, the foothill part of the Kremlin, was abandoned for years. There was nothing here. Even the grass was high and nobody cut it. We even used to have picnics here and nobody bothered us. Here we are. There is a bell tower on the left, and what is it in front of us? It is Dmitrievskaya Tower, the main tower of the whole Nizhny Novgorod Kremlin. It has a travel arch, and it is facing Minin Square. Minin Square is the biggest square of Nizhny Novgorod. If there was a survey what historical object can be considered as a symbol of Nizhny Novgorod, then probably Dmitrievskaya Tower would win, because it is not only beautiful but also ancient. This tower has a name of Grand Duke Dmitry Konstantinovich, who was the first to start building the Kremlin in stone. His attempt was not successful, but at least it was the first. The weather forecast promises us rain in the evening, but despite this, autumn is a very beautiful time in Nizhny Novgorod, and there are lots of people with children who are walking and enjoying themselves. We are not the exception. Our children are with us today, and I hope our boys will cope with the walk, because we are not going to go around the Kremlin only. We are going to climb up the wall and to take a walk on its wall, and it is going to be more than 2 kilometers. Please give us a like for that. September is a quiet time of the year in Russia. There are no winds, and it's relatively warm. The temperature is 10 degrees Celsius. And look at the trees. They are not bare yet. It's beautiful. The building on the right was built by order of Nicholas I, Russian Emperor, in the 19th century. It is the building of arsenal. Difficult to say that, but it was a military warehouse or something like this. It is very large, and it is a museum of modern art nowadays. There was a huge cathedral near the bell tower, And people used to call it the chest because it looked like an enormous box, and it was a nickname for that. And that monument looks like an ancient one too, but it was built in 1999 and set here. It is dedicated to Kirill and Methodius. They were the creators of the Church Slavonic alphabet. They were from Bulgaria, and the services in our churches are still held using the Church Slavonic language. Some people consider that building is an architectural monument too. The style is Soviet constructivism. We don't think this building is of great value. If you don't agree with us, please leave a comment. You must take the elevator to go up the bell tower, that is the rule. But you cannot go down using the elevator as well. You must use the stairs. The stairs are quite narrow, but possible to go down. There will be a time of bell ringing soon, so I'll tell you beforehand that before we go to the upper platform, we will enter a room with black and white paintings. They show us the view around like it was in the 19th century, and you will be able to see the governor's house and also the domes of the cathedral, the destroyed cathedral. So let's go in. There is a tradition to give presents when somebody has birthday, and there is a present from Vladimir Putin. It is the main bell on the bell tower. It has a name of the president on it. There is a queue near the museum. People want to enter the Kremlin wall and to have a walk around it, but it won't take you a long time to get a ticket because the Kremlin wall is quite long and it will fit everybody. And this is a place where you can see lots of children at any time of the year, but especially in summer. That is an exhibition of military equipment. Such exhibitions are very common for Russian cities, and you can find several only in Nizhny Novgorod. The most interesting exhibits here are the fighter, the plane, you may see it on the right. Also the submarine tower, it's a little bit further. And the most interesting from our point of view is installation of multiple rocket launchers on a truck. But it's a rather long name for our favorite military car. People just call it Katyusha. Katyusha is a women's name. All these military equipments were produced in the Soviet Union Empire during the World War II. We are proud of them. During the World War II, there were lots of factories in Nizhny Novgorod that were rearranged as military factories. Who worked there? Of course, these were old people, children, and women, because all men were at front. They were fighting Nazi Germany. And Nizhny Novgorod has a status of the city of labor military glory. There is a submarine tower, we are coming closer, and then you will see Katyusha. Yes, here it is. In 90s, when I didn't live in Nizhny Novgorod, I saw a piece of news that two men were stuck inside the tank here in the Kremlin. Now it's impossible to get inside, but then it was. And what did they want to get there? It was January, it was dreadfully cold. Probably these two men were a little bit drunk, I don't know. Brr. In 2006, when I walked along the Kremlin walls for the first time, I remember there was a protest action here on the Kremlin's territory. Um, it was organized by Communist Party. People were against NATO exercises in Nizhny Novgorod district. 400 soldiers arrived from NATO arrived at one of the military bases in Nizhny Novgorod district, and there were two armored personal carriers with them, if I'm not mistaken. People were against that, and I agree with them. But if you're a tourist, not a soldier, welcome to our land anytime. There are 13 towers in Nizhny Novgorod Kremlin, but in 2006 the 7th and the 8th tower were in ruins and they were restored only now, so the walk was much shorter that time. You can see a huge building far away. It is old. It was built by order of Russian Empress Catherine the Great at the very beginning of the 19th century. The building on the right is also old, but the building on the left is modern, but it was built in style of classicism to maintain all the style in Kremlin. The city was founded in 1221, and we are heading to the oldest building in the city. Do you see the green dome over there? That is the Cathedral of Saint Michael the Archangel. This church was founded in 1221 as well. Why was the first cathedral on the territory consecrated in honor of Saint Michael the Archangel? Michael the Archangel is the patron of heavenly host, I mean angels, but also he is the patron of soldiers and army in general. And Nizhny Novgorod fortress was built as the beginning of the expansion Russian dukes to the east, and they needed victories in their military campaigns, so they were asking Saint Michael the Archangel for help. And there is a monument to the founder of Nizhny Novgorod, Saint Georgy Всеволодовich. His mentor, Saint Simon, is standing to the right. Georgy Всеволодовich died in an unequal battle with the forces of Golden Horde a few years after the foundation. There is a grave of Kazma Minin in this church. As I said before, Kazma Minin was a merchant who called up Home Guard to save Moscow in the 17th century. Initially, his tomb was situated in that big cathedral next to the bell tower, but when it was destroyed in 1930s, his tomb was moved here. As you see, there are still no murals in this cathedral. It is waiting for its turn to get restored, like many others. It was closed and ravaged in 1920s. Here he is, Kazima Minin. Rest in peace, brave man. Even one man can change history. Well, Kazima Minin was not alone. According to his own words, he had a dream, lots of dreams, where Saint Sergius of Radonezh asked him to start a home guard. Here he is on the right, Saint Sergius of Radonezh, and to the left is Saint Seraphim. It's a miracle that communists didn't destroy this cathedral in 1930s like many others. Probably they didn't do that because it is the oldest building in the city. But when we say that it is the oldest, we mean only the stone base. And the cathedral itself was rebuilt a few times. It was burned a few times and was totally restored in the 7th century. I said it was burnt a few times. Of course, it burned a few times, because nobody burned this cathedral on purpose, no. By the way, if you're not a Christian, if you don't want to pray, anyway, get inside this cathedral and spend a few minutes there. You don't have to buy candles, you don't have to pray if you don't want. Just do nothing, you don't have to do anything there. Just get inside and have a look. Church services are held every day, one in the morning from 8 to 10 o'clock and one in the evening from 5 o'clock till 6:30. So this building is even older than the stone Kremlin, because our Kremlin was at first made from wood, and it was made from stone only at the very beginning of the 16th century. In every city or town of Russia you can find a memorial to those who died during the World War II. And the eternal flame is a traditional symbol of it. But we don't call it the World War II. It's not just the Second War for us, no. We call it the Great Patriotic War. That's why the dates are a little bit different, 1941 to 1945. The place is very spacious, and every September there are grand meetings of students of pedagogical university here, are held here. I used to take part in such things many years ago when I was a student myself. Well, there are no grand meetings now due to coronavirus, but this place is never empty anyway. There are so many people because there is a good view of the place where two rivers are meeting together. Look, the Oka River inflows into the Volga River. We call this place pointer a spit, strelka in Russian. Strelka is another center of Nizhny Novgorod, but not the upland center as the Kremlin, but the over the river center, if it's possible to say so. This part of the memorial is new. We are moving from the right to the left, but I will read you what is written here. Comrades, remember those who defended life. They saved us both, the sun and joy. Those who died for honor, for freedom, for the motherland. Consider them walking next to you forever. The memorial to the heroes of the 20th century is located next to the monument to the heroes of the 17th century. This one is dedicated to Kazima Minin and Duke Dmitry Pozharsky. Dmitry Pozharsky was skilled in battles, and that's why he led the Home Guard. The granite column was transported from the Urals, the Ural Mountains, and somehow during the transportation it got broken down into two pieces. How did they put these pieces together? How did they glue them up? Maybe they used organic egg yolks, we don't know, but it's still safe and sound. This building is for the government of the Nizhny Novgorod region, and here is also the representation of the president in the Volga Federal District. And we are coming back to the Dmitrovskaya Tower, where we will start our walk along the Kremlin's walls. Do you hear the birds singing? These are tomtits and sparrows. Only these birds don't leave us during the cold season. We have feeding racks for them in our garden full of seeds, and they keep singing and cheer us up during the long winter months. By the way, you cannot get inside the Kremlin in your car, only if you have got a special pass. Scooters and bicycles are also forbidden. I remember that several years ago we had a bicycle trip around Nizhny Novgorod, my husband, our old son, and I, and we entered the Kremlin with our bicycles, but we were not cycling, we were walking. We are finishing our lap of honor around the main attractions of the Nizhny Novgorod Kremlin, and now we are ready to start our walk along the wall. When the Kremlin wall had just been opened from reconstruction, the walk around the Kremlin wall was free of charge. It was like a present for the city's jubilee. But now we have to pay. There are some museums in some of the towers, but some towers are closed and impossible to get in. So if you want to get in all the museums, you have to pay 500 rubles. But if you don't want to do that and want just to wander around the wall, you have to pay 250 rubles. And the tickets twice as cheap for school children. If you think that 2 kilometers is just too much for you, you can buy just half a walk. You can go separately into Ivanovskaya Tower to get into the museum. That is much cheaper than the original price. But if you think that you are healthy enough to have the whole walk, please notice that there are lots of steps, and they are enormously high, higher than steps in the original, for example, steps in shopping mall. So think over beforehand and good luck. There is no wind today and it's rather warm, about 10 degrees Celsius, but we took a thermos with hot tea with us and some candies. You can see signs here that drinking and eating are strictly forbidden, but nobody gave us a reprimand. By the way, we were drinking our tea in we were quiet and neat, so why not have a rest if we have such a long walk? So, we are armed with the thermos with hot tea and candies, we are wearing comfortable walking shoes, and we are ready for our walk. But there is a disappointment. The Dmitrovskaya Tower has got a museum of natural history, but it's closed and we can't go in. So we're just admiring the view. It is Minin Square and the beginning of the Zelensky descent. Dmitrievskaya Tower is the biggest, the most beautiful, and the main city streets have got their beginning from this tower, like sun rays. These streets are Pokrovskaya, Varvarskaya, and Ulyanova. We are looking through the windows of different sizes. These are not usual windows, but combat windows. Every tower was equipped with cannons of different sizes, and that's why windows are also smaller or big, because they are combat ones. This building has an official name, the Palace of Labor, but it was built in the 19th century, and it belonged to a merchant, Bugrov. He gave this to the state council in the very end of the 19th century. There is a Hall of Justice nowadays and some commercial spaces on the first floor. The floor is not even. Somewhere we can see gutters for the water drain. And what is this on the left? This is a part of a spiral staircase. There are spiral staircases inside the wall, and if there was not enough space to build a staircase, people built such projections. The next tower, it is locked. Kladovaya Tower. Kladovaya means pantry tower. It was used as a warehouse. It's a round tower. It has got four tiers, and the first tier, the lowest, is located underground. So there are lots of secrets that we don't know and have not seen yet. The pantry tower justifies its name. It was used as an archive during the Russian Empire times, and it burned many times, and many documents were lost during the biggest fire at the very beginning of the 20th century. Such medieval fortresses were built traditionally to defend people from nomad raids. And wooden Kremlin in Nizhny Novgorod performed this function, but the Kremlin in stone was built for a different reason, for a different purpose. The stone Kremlin was built on the money of the Moscow Grand Duke. His name was Vasily III. He built this fortress not to defend the people of Nizhny Novgorod from nomad raids. No, he wanted a base to gather his troops because he wanted to start his military expansion down the Volga River and to the east. Nizhny Novgorod was a border town that time. Lands of the Moscow state finished here, and there was another state nearby, Kazansky Khanate. Kazansky Khanate was one of the pieces that were left from the Golden Horde. I think I should say a few words about the Golden Horde. The Golden Horde was a medieval state, very big and powerful. It was a nomadic state, and Russian lands were dependent on it for years. More than 200 years, Russian lands paid tributes, enormous tributes to the Golden Horde, and if they did not, troops of the Golden Horde had no mercy. The Nikolskaya Tower has its name after the church of Saint Nicholas of Myra that is located nearby. Russian people call this saint man Nicholas the Wonder Maker, and we love him very much. This tower looks very similar to the Dmitrovskaya tower, but it is not the main and it is not as big as the Dmitrovskaya tower. That's why it looks very cozy and beautiful. There is a bridge over Zelensky descent that leads to the tower so that this tower has a travel through and you can get into the Kremlin through it. This tower looks exactly the same as it was in the 16th century. It is a square tower, it has got a hipped roof, now it's green, and there is a little watchtower on the top. It's very beautiful. As you see, some of the brickwork was restored, but 60% of the brickwork is original, the 16th century. I mean all the Kremlin. Of course, when the Grand Duke of Moscow, Vasily III, gave money to build a brick fortress here, that on the one hand meant that Nizhny Novgorod Principality was no longer independent. But on the other hand, that meant that Russian lands, that unification of Russian lands had begun. And that was a new stage of development for this district because the 15th century was extremely hard for this land. Let me explain why. Russian lands were not united at that time. There were many, well, not many, some isolated principalities, and they were almost unprotected from the nomad raids. They suffered from nomad raids a lot. For example, in 1408, there was a raid of Khan Yedygey. He was a Khan of the Golden Horde, and he burned Nizhny Novgorod Kremlin, it was wood at that time, to ashes. A tad later, in 1445, another Khan, Uluk Muhammad, he was banished from the Golden Horde, and he was looking a land where to found his own state, and he chose Nizhny Novgorod Kremlin. He was trying to settle here with his army for a year, and of course Russian lands were almost finally ruined. And of course, the building of a brick fortress was something new for the territory, something really favorable. And it was a sign of unification of Russian lands into one big state. By the way, since it was set in stone, this Kremlin has not been seized. Well, we are going downstairs from the fourth tier to the third, and we are going back to the wall. The second tier is not available for us, it is located at ground level, and the first tier is underground. So the combat squads who supported the Moscow Duke, they were going down the rivers, the Oka River and the Volga River, and they met here in this fortress to continue their military campaigns down the Volga River. Newborn Muscovite state could not feel safe, bordering with different nomad states. There was no Golden Horde that time already, but there were different fragments of it. Kazan Khanate, Astrakhan Khanate, and some others. And that's why the dukes kept the expansion. But only Tsar Ivan IV managed to protect the borders completely, because he had not just put these Khanates under the protectorate. No, he conquered and subdued Kazan and Astrakhan Khanate. We are walking along the passage that connects two towers, the Karamyslova Tower and the Tainitskaya Tower. The Karamyslova Tower has got its name from the word Karamysla. Not even Russian children understand what Karamysla is, because it's an old-fashioned word. And let me explain. It is an old-fashioned device that helped people to carry buckets of water on the shoulder. I have found a word at in the dictionary, shoulder yoke, but I'm not sure that everybody understands. So shoulder yoke is a special thick stick that helped you to carry buckets of water on the shoulder, and you can hang on one bucket of water on one side of this yoke and another bucket on the other side, and so you can carry two buckets of water at once, and your hands are free. So why did this tower get such a strange name? Let me explain. There is a legend. Once upon a time, the Kremlin was sieged by enemy forces of Tatars. The citizens defended their fortress for a long time, but their water supplies finished, and they were ready to surrender to the enemies. But a brave girl appeared, and at night she went out with buckets and a yoke to the river. She drank some water from the river, got water in her buckets, but an enemy patrol met her. She did not have time to return behind the walls of the Kremlin, so she took a yoke and began to fight with the Tatars. She killed several of them and died herself. And the Tatars thought, if women are so strong in the city, then what are the men? And they went away from the city forever. The girl was buried at the tower with her yoke and the buckets, and the tower is called Karamyslova since then. We are walking along the passage where, according to archaeologists, the building of the Kremlin was finished. According to their theory, there were two teams of workers who were building the Kremlin, and they finally met here. Look, do you see the stairs? If there are some stairs, there should be height difference, but there was not any height difference because the land is flat. So two teams of workers met here, but they could not connect without the stairs. And also archaeologists think so because this part of the Kremlin is built from different remains, from different kind of bricks and limestone. So we suppose they are right. This red building was a riding hall in the 19th century. There were lots of horses. There is a church of St. Nicholas behind it, but I want to say a few more words about the monument that you can see in front. This is the monument to a married couple, Holy Prince Dmitry of Moscow and Holy Blessed Princess Evdokia Dmitrievna. Evdokia Dmitrievna was a daughter of the Duke of Nizhny Novgorod Principality, Dmitry Konstantinovich. The main tower of the Nizhny Novgorod Kremlin has got his name, the Dmitrievskaya Tower. Prince Dmitry of Moscow was 15 when he got married, and Princess Evdokia was 13 years old. Their marriage was the pledge of a peaceful cooperation between the two principalities, Moscow and Nizhny Novgorod. There are 400 kilometers between them, by the way. We are in the Tainitskaya Tower, and this is the best view of the city probably. You can see this place where two rivers meet together, the Spit, and you can see the Cathedral of Alexander Nevsky there, and the stadium. The name of this tower can be translated as a secret tower. So what secret was there? There was an underground passage that led to the river Pachayna. In case the fortress is sieged, people can go and fill in their water supplies. And where is the river now? It has been taken underground in a manifold. The lane outside the Kremlin has been closed for restoration for a very long time. It has an official name, the Alley of Love. I hope it will be opened for people in spring, and courting couples will be walking around and admiring the sunset. Let me go back to the married couple. At that time, the two principalities, Nizhny Novgorod and Moscow, were almost equal. They were equally independent and powerful. But then Dmitry Konstantinovich had a problem with the succession to the throne. There was a rivalry between the brothers, and he asked Dmitry of Moscow for help. Prince Dmitry of Moscow sent Sergius of Radonezh, a saint man, to Nizhny Novgorod Principality, but his cautions didn't help. And then Prince Dmitry of Moscow sent military troops to help Dmitry Konstantinovich. And this way he subdued Nizhny Novgorod Principality in some ways. And then their marriage with Eudokia Dmitrievna, it was a sign of the future unity of the Russian lands. But it was still very far away for the real unification of Russian lands into one big state. In the 14th century, the Golden Horde was a very big and powerful state. It was a fear for all the Russians. But not for the Prince Dmitry of Moscow. He united the military forces, almost all Russian principalities, to fight the Golden Horde for the first time in history. The battle took place on the field Kulikova, not far from the river Don. It was a great battle. There were many people murdered there, and Russian troops saw for the first time in their lives how the hordes of Tatars and Mongols stepped back and ran away in fright. Probably then the warriors of different principalities understood that they are powerful if they are united. It will not be the end of the Golden Horde as a state. 2 years after that, another Khan, Tokhtamysh, will burn Moscow to ashes and will murder almost 24,000 of people, while Dmitry of Moscow will be trying to gather troops to protect the city. But the battle on Kulikova field was the first sign of Russian independence. We are going past two closed towers, the Clock Tower and the North Tower. There is a legend that in the 19th century, one of the emperors of Russia, Nicholas I, wanted these two towers for his residence. A budget paper was found in one of the archives about the refurbishment of these two towers into the emperor's flat, and it was extremely costly, 150,000 rubles, but it had not been performed. We are walking along the passage that connects the Clock Tower and the Ivanovskaya Tower. The height difference is impressive here, 34 meters. There are 113 steps. You can count them if you don't believe me, but please be careful. The height of the steps is enormous here. They are much higher than in modern buildings. It is very challenging to build a fortress on the land with such differences in height. But the Kremlin has been here for a few centuries, and we can only applaud to the workers whose construction calculations turned out to be correct. We walked here 4 years ago. Our little son, was 1 year old that time. He was sleeping in a pram. And my husband, he didn't just go down the stairs, these stairs. He was carrying a pram. Oh, my dear. We are heading to the Ivanovskaya Tower. It is the main tower of the foothill part of the Kremlin. It was equipped with some cannons, of course, because it protected the fortress from the river Volga, and there were some lifting grills also. It was converted into a museum of people's militia of the 17th century, and it has been changed a lot. But unfortunately, we cannot get in because the museum is still closed. Why is the Museum of Home Guard located exactly here in this tower? Because from this tower, from this place, they started their military campaign to save Moscow from the invaders. Do you remember we entered the Kremlin through the gate next to the Ivanovskaya Tower, and we saw a monument to the first settlers of Nizhny Novgorod and the church of Saint Simeon Stylite, and now we are looking at these objects again, but from a different perspective. We are coming close to a round tower, the White Tower. It used to have a name, the Semyonovskaya Tower, because there was a church of Saint Simeon Stylite located nearby. But in the 19th century, it has changed its name into the White Tower because of the white tiles, the white facing that you can see at the base. These white facing have been there since the foundation of the tower. The route used to end at the Ivanovskaya Tower 4 years ago, but now it is much longer. The most persistent tourists continue their walk. However, we are all a bit tired. But from time to time, signs appear indicating how many meters there are to the end of our excursion. They cheer us up. From this passage we can see a little square with a monument to our first emperor Peter the Great. And look, the brickwork that you can see here is not ancient, it is new. Why is it new? This tower, the Zachativskaya Tower, and next to it the tower to Saint Boris and Gleb, they were destroyed by a huge landslide in the 17th century. There were some attempts to rebuild these towers again in the passages, but they were not successful until the 2012. There are museums in these towers, and we can even get inside. The upper tier of the Zachativskaya Tower is a museum of window platebands. You know, there is a tradition in Russian culture to decorate windows with such things. Usually it was a woodwork if the house is wooden, but can be brickwork if the house is brick. Well, it is obvious that the first function of the window plateband is to close the gap between the window and the wall. But look how they are beautifully designed. By the way, the pagans used to believe that specially decorated window platebands protect the house from the penetration of evil spirit. Every board of a window plateband had got its unique name. The side boards had got their unique names, the upper board and the bottom board. It's really impossible to translate these names into another language, but I will try to explain you that the upper board, it had got a root in its name from the ancient word means forehead, and the bottom board had got a meaning like apron. Various wood carving techniques are presented here, and all the ornaments have got their unique names also. Shutters. You can hardly find such things in real life, even in old wooden houses. However, I saw one or two in a distant village a few weeks ago. We are going to the first tier. There is a little archaeological exhibition there. There are exhibits found during the excavations of the real Zachativskaya Tower, but mainly there are remains of the foundation of the base. You can see everything that is left from the real Zachativskaya Tower here, just the base. The landslides were so huge that they moved the foundation some meters further. And it was the difficulty why this part of the Kremlin could not have been rebuilt for a long time. It's not an easy matter to build a proper base in such a place with subterranean waters. The original foundation has been hidden under a glass roof for us to see. We are heading to the tower of Saint Boris and Gleb. This tower has its name because there was a church to these saint brothers nearby. There isn't a church now. This part of the Kremlin and this tower was also destroyed by a huge landslide, along with the Zachatevskaya tower, but this tower was restored during the Soviet Union times. There are no museums in the towers in this part of the Kremlin. You see, someone is really tired. But we are among the first to go through these passages. There was almost nobody here for a very long time, and this gives us the strength to move on. And as a present for the strongest tourists, the Chkalovskaya steers from the different perspective. We could not see it from this perspective before, and now that happened for the first time. I want to say a few words about the arches that you can see on the walls inside the fortress. It's not for beauty and not a storage space, no, as you may think. Stone was extremely expensive at that time, and Italian architects who made projects for the Kremlin knew how to save expensive bricks. And at the same time, these arches reduced the pressure of the wall on the foundation. That's it. The Georgievskaya tower is closed, we can only have a peep. The lower tier of this tower is located underground. It's a square tower, and the lower tier is connected to the upper tiers by a special system of passages with stairs or ladders. That's why it's a great pity that we cannot look at them. But there is a view of the main square of Nizhny Novgorod, Minin's square, Kozma Minin. So outside part of the Kremlin wall faces Minin Square, and inside part of the Kremlin wall faces the building of Arsenal, and further there will be the residence of governor. Well, it was the residence of the governor, but now it's an art museum. We walked here in the very end of September, and we did not know that soon all the museums would be closed for a quarantine due to COVID. What can we say? We got there in time. It was raining a bit while we were inside, but we didn't even notice that. Look, that was a military governor's house, now it's an art museum. And that was a theological seminary in the 19th century. Now it's a pedagogical university, and I used to study there. We are walking by the gunpowder tower. Apparently, there was a warehouse for the gunpowder. But has the gunpowder there never exploded? I mean, this tower is safe and sound. We are finishing our walk with you today. Neither the rain nor the gloomy autumn sky bothered us today. The main thing is the mood. It should be bright and cheerful. Subscribe to our channel, put likes or dislikes, and write comments. And we will be trying to make new interesting videos for you. Goodbye and good luck!